I always believe in making a plan. I also believe that most things don't go according to plan, but if you have a plan, at least you can set out and measure, each step and what's working and what's not working, and then pivot based on the results that you're getting. And I'm also a proponent of, I always say, like you said, to just jump and get started. I always say, just get started.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chantell Preston with the Get Real, Get Results podcast. If you're one of those people, one of those women that are trying to juggle a ton of stuff, we just started back to school, you're trying to juggle your career, your kids, the new routines, you're definitely going to want to listen today. I'm super excited. I have a great guest, Stephanie Cartin with the Entrepreneista League. She's a serial entrepreneur. She's done some amazing things. She's completely vulnerable like I am in regards to talking about not just her professional, but also her personal life and how do we put all this stuff together. So Stephanie, let's just go ahead and jump in if you don't mind. I've got so much to share with my listeners. And so I'm so excited. You and I had a little conversation beforehand. So I'm all amped up already. So let's just go ahead and jump in. So talk to me a little bit about, you started with your corporate career and then you chose to leave your corporate career and start an entrepreneurial journey with your first company. Talk a little bit through that, why you decided to make that change and that decision, and how'd that go?
I think I was just a born entrepreneista, if you will. From my earliest childhood memories, I was selling anything and everything. I was always looking for what was trending and figuring out how to make a business out of it. So from Girl Scout cookies to friendship bracelets to I had a Beanie Baby resale business, absolutely anything and everything. It was how can I figure out how to create a market for this? So that's just who I was. And I think how I actually came out of the womb. So fast forward, I actually went to Cornell for hospitality and business management. And back when I was at Cornell is actually when Facebook first started. And I remember thinking back then, because I was, studying hospitality and sales and marketing, but I remember getting access, and back then it was called thefacebook.com when Facebook first came out, if you remember that. And I remember thinking, I'm like, this is going to change everything that I'm learning about in college. I didn't know quite how, but I just had the foresight to know. And I feel like I was, again, even as a child, then in college, always on to that next trend and figuring out how to create something from, what was trending. So now fast forward, I graduate from Cornell and I was working in the hospitality industry and sales and marketing and pursuing what I went to school for. But now these new social media platforms were coming out, and I kept seeing, these platforms are coming out and these businesses don't know how to use social media to grow their business. So I actually started just taking clients on the side, really just working nights and weekends for a while until I said, all right, if this is going to be an actual business, I need to either go all in and do it or not do it anymore. So that's when I decided to leave the corporate world to eventually start what would be our social media agency called Socialfly that I partnered together with my amazing best friend and business partner, Courtney Spritzer. So that is the short story of my childhood and background and what led me to actually leave the corporate world. I think I was born to be an entrepreneur, not in the corporate world.
Well, okay. So now we have so many layers to peel back at this point. So thank you for sharing that. But talk a little bit, you said you were doing it on the side. There's so many women that have that entrepreneurial mindset, but are kind of stuck in that corporate world, and they wonder, can I make it happen? Can I do it? I've got kids, I've got this, I've got that. And there's never enough time in the day. So how did you really juggle the two and determine, hey, if this is a priority, I need to do X, Y, and Z? Talk a little bit about that in your mind of how you made that decision.
Back then, and now we're going back, 14, 15 years now. So I'm 41 years old. We started our business initially in 2011 on the side of our full-time jobs. And it wasn't until 2012 that we actually left our corporate jobs to start our business full time. So the one thing I'll share is Courtney and I were very young when we first started. We were in our early 20s. We did not have a lot of responsibility. I was not married at the time, did not have a child. And we had what felt like to us like all the time in the world to just work really hard during the day at our corporate job and then stay up until midnight every night and be working on the business on the side. And that's why I always share with people, and we have a lot of women in our community that are working full time and starting their business on the side and are part of our community to learn how to manage and do it all and eventually leave, everyone's circumstances are different, and that's okay. And you have to look at what your specific circumstance is and build a plan. Like if you want to leave your corporate job, build a plan that could work for you. Because, again, Courtney and I had the luxury, I guess, or the ability back then of having so much time, but that's not the reality for a lot of people who are leaving the corporate world and might have a family, and you need income coming in, and you can't leave your corporate job until you're able to replace that income. So it might take a bit longer to do, and that's okay. But the best thing you can do is just start to make a plan to get towards that end result that you want. Because if it's just chaos and you don't really have a plan to get where you want to be, you're never going to get there. But once you start writing it down and seeing what's working, what's not working, you can pivot your plan based on your specific circumstance, then you'll be able to go a lot further faster.
That's so interesting. I always tell people, ignorance is bliss. Sometimes, when you're young, you don't realize what you're doing and you don't have those responsibilities.
Yes.
But as we get older, I feel like we get a little bit less, we're more risk adverse, let's just say. And so if we're more risk adverse, but then you see more women really figuring out who they are later in life and saying, hey, I really want to do this because this is what I'm meant to do. And so what advice do you give those women that are a little bit older, the ones that are in your league now? Yeah. What advice do you give them if they're thinking about this, but yet they still are kind of on the fence of, I don't know if I can do it or not. And just, they're trying to figure that out. What advice do you give them?
Yeah, well, it's actually one of the reasons why we created our Entrepreneista League community. And it was actually back in, 2020 when the pandemic first started, we were getting these messages from women in the corporate world who lost their job and were like, I need to start a business, or women who needed to really pivot because now they're trying to raise their family, work a corporate job from home. And they were like, this is not doable. How can I actually start something? So it's one of the reasons why we started our community, because when you're able to have that network and have people to talk to and come together and problem solve, and you're not alone, it makes everything so much easier. So my first piece of advice is you're not alone. So surround yourself with other people who are going through something similar to you, and surround yourself with other people who've already done it so you can learn from them, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. People have left the corporate world to start their own business for many, many years. So learn from people who have already done it, what worked, what didn't work, and have a community that you can talk to really share ideas and get advice and feel like you have that support system. My best advice is don't try to do it alone and by yourself, because you don't have to. You don't have to navigate anything alone in life and business. That is the whole point of community and bringing people together who can share and help each other.
It's so funny you say that, because I'm a huge proponent as, it doesn't have to be lonely at the top. Build your community around you. And I think as women, we have a tendency not to do that. We think we have to have all the answers to everything all the time, because that's what's expected of us. We deal with our families, we deal with our kids. And so we're not used to having that community around us or asking for help. And so with this community that you've built, talk a little bit more about, how do you, because there's a lot of communities popping up. Okay, let's just say that not all are equal. I'll say that out loud, and that's the Chantell Preston advice, not from Stephanie. They're not all equal. So how do you determine which one is right for you as you go down this path?
You really have to first figure out what are you looking for? What would success look like to you from being part of insert community here, right? Because there are so many communities, and there's so many amazing communities for all different things, right? For Entrepreneista, we're a business community. We help founders learn how to grow and scale their business and have all the community and support and connections. But there's so many communities that are out there. There's communities to, learn how to do have new skills, or book clubs. It really just depends on what you want and what the outcome you're looking for is. Something I always share with people, it's talk to other members of that specific community that you're looking into to hear about their experience, hear what their outcomes were, so you can see if that's in line with what you're looking for in the specific community that you're looking for. Because even with Entrepreneista, right? We're not the right community for absolutely everyone. We're the right community if you're an ambitious founder who wants to grow with community support and have resources, but that's not for everyone, right? And that's totally okay. But I would say that's also the differentiator for Entrepreneista is the women that are in our community. And people ask me this all the time, Chantell, they're like, what's so special about Entrepreneista? Why Entrepreneista over another community? I'm like, it's the women that are in the community. That is the the magic and the secret sauce is that everyone is just vision, mission aligned, and everyone wants to support and help each other. And yeah, let's like test it out. Talk to other people who are part of whatever you're looking to get involved in and see if it just like, you'll know, like you'll see if it like feels like that right fit for you.
And I did that early on when all these communities started popping up. I would join communities and I realized this isn't for me. This isn't the right community to be in. But you're right. I didn't have a list of what do I want to get out of it. I just was like, ooh, excited. I get to be part of a community because I'd never been in one before. And so you jump in without really determining how can it impact me both personally and professionally. And I think that that's sometimes what we do is we get so excited about having something that we don't really take the time to think of, is this a right place for me? And, I'm a big proponent. The one thing we don't get back in life is time. So make sure that if you're going to do it, it brings value to you. And I think that that's what you're saying is making sure that it's the right time and place because you talked about choices. So let's talk about choices for a second. I love this. You talked about, and a lot of people don't think about this. They just tell people to jump off. Just do it. Just do it. But you're right. You really have to figure out where are you in the phase of your life? Does it make sense right now? I'm a big one for saying, hey, jump before you're ready, but also evaluate where are you in your life and is it the right time? Talk a little bit about how you assess timing for what you did with Entrepreneista, but also when you talk to other entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think, like I said, it all comes down to your specific lifestyle and life circumstances and where you are right now. And I always believe in making a plan. I also believe that most things don't go according to plan, but
Right.
if you have a plan, at least you can set out and measure, each step and what's working and what's not working, and then pivot based on the results that you're getting. And I'm also a proponent of, I always say, like you said, to just jump and get started. I always say, just get started. Like just getting started can mean starting with a plan. It doesn't mean you have to quit your job and start your business full-time tomorrow. Just getting started might mean you're still working your full-time job, but you're starting to put together a plan of what it could look like to eventually leave and focus on your business full-time if that's what your goals are. And I also believe like we're all different, right? You have to decide what success looks like to you. For some people, building a business, they're like, I want to build a business. I want to raise venture capital and I want to sell my business for $1 billion. And like, that's success to me. And like, that's great if that's what success is to you. For some people, it's, I want to replace my corporate income and I want to make $150,000 a year building a business and following my passion and doing what I love. And that's what success looks like to me. And that is also amazing. And that is okay. But sometimes I find, especially as women, we get caught up in like the glamour and the glitz of like the headlines of this person is doing that. And it's like, just focus on what you're doing and what success looks like to you and build the plan that just makes sense for you in your life.
I love it. And for those of you that are listening, I did not pay Stephanie to say all of this because everything you're hitting on are points that I've hit in the past in regards to what does success mean to you? And I think for so long with women, especially, my genre, I'm older than you are, it's like success was all about money and title. And it's not like that. Once you realize what's important to you, it seems like things open up and you're able to find things that not only you're passionate about, but also that make an impact, that make you money. So it's like following who you are and really determining that is important, even when you're jumping into a business.
Absolutely.
Let's go back from jumping from the corporate world to the entrepreneurial world. What are some of the things that you had to unlearn from your corporate world as becoming a founder?
I love this. Okay. So I actually had really interesting work experiences prior to starting Socialfly full time. And I had a really great working experience when I actually worked for Marriott. I loved working for Marriott. I loved the people I worked with. I loved their culture and their values. If you follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn, you see I still talk about Marriott to this day because I just had such an incredible experience. And I was able to take so much of what I learned working there to bring to starting businesses of how important culture is and how you treat your team. I also had experiences working at other companies where I had I won't name them, but I had just not great leaders. And the integrity wasn't there at the top in other companies that I worked for. And I remember when Courtney and I like sat down to create our company values and mission, I was like, we need to take all the good things that we've both learned from the corporate world and throw away all the bad things and make sure that we don't repeat those mistakes as we're building. Having a corporate career prior to starting businesses was, I think, super valuable because I was able to see and learn so much and really just take the good stuff and try to leave the not so great stuff behind.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. I always tell people sometimes it's easier to know what you don't like versus what you do like. And so as long as you know what you don't like, you can incorporate that into your new business. And so you guys built your first company, but then you sold. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about that experience. Walk us through the mindset of, hey, it's time for us to sell. It's the right time. But then letting go of something that was so important to you, that was almost like your child, your baby you had created. So talk through that a little bit.
Totally. Yeah. I'll share a little backstory here just to kind of set the stage for mine and Courtney's business partnership and how we are so lucky we have each other. Like we've had the best business partnership over the years because we worked also with an amazing business coach. So shout out to all the awesome business coaches who help us founders navigate everything. So when we first started Socialfly, which is a full service social media marketing and influencer agency, we started the business because we were so passionate about helping people learn how to build their business using social media and market their business on social media. It was never a thought in our minds like, oh, we're going to build this business to ultimately sell this business. We didn't even know that was a thing. We were too young, naive, first-time entrepreneurs trying to build a marketing agency and had never built a marketing agency before. But something that we learned early on, so we actually joined a networking group right when we first started our business. And that first networking group that we joined was like the breadcrumbs that led to all of the next things in our business, from our first clients to getting speaking opportunities to meeting our mutual friend and our amazing mentor, Carrie Kirpin. So I spoke at an event that I was referred to from this networking group, was then introduced to Carrie Kirpin, and Carrie became mine and Courtney's mentor from like the very early days of starting Socialfly. So our first meeting, you'll love this story. We meet with her and she like wants to take us under her wing and help us. She was a few years ahead of us in business. And she tells us to read the book called Built to Sell. And we read Courtney and I, it was like homework. We read the book like that week. And it just opened our eyes like, oh, you can actually build a business and it has value in it. You can choose to ultimately sell the business. Now, Courtney and I were doing great work in our business. We had a lot of early traction in the business as well. And within a few years, we started getting a lot of emails from people that were interested in acquiring Socialfly. And we were early, right? I mean, we were early in the social media space. We were one of the only women-owned social media agencies back then. And we were like, okay, maybe like we should look into this and see if it makes sense to sell and when it makes sense to sell. Long story short, so many learning lessons because people were reaching out to us all the time and we started like going down the path of like having these conversations. And then we realized like we were just still too early. There was so much more that we wanted to do. Then when we decided we were actually ready to put the business up for sale, then the pandemic happened. And then I'll take you back a little bit here too, how Entrepreneista was actually created, our podcast. It started, the community started actually as a podcast. So we were getting messages from women all of the time wanting to go out to coffee and pick our brain and just wanting to hear how we grew our business so quickly. And we were like, it's impossible to go out with everyone for a coffee. Like, how can we do this at scale? So that's why we started our podcast in 2018. So the podcast started on the side of running the agency. But then when the pandemic happened and so many women were reaching out at that time, as I mentioned, needing more help and guidance, that's when Courtney and I decided, okay, one of us needs to actually focus and build Entrepreneista into what it is today. And we decided I would do that and Courtney would stay focused on growing the agency because at that point we knew we were ultimately going to sell it. We were at that point just figuring out the timing because of the pandemic and all the things that were going on at the time. But yeah, so over the past 5 years, I was focused on Entrepreneista, Courtney on Socialfly, and then we sold the agency in February of, what year are we in? 2025? February of 2024. So It was a journey and lots of learning lessons. And we had incredible women like Carrie who mentored us and guided us in the background for many years. So when it was time for us to actually sell, we had incredible people in our corner who could really advise us and help us.
And so, how do you find those people? How do you find the advisors that you need? Because I'll just be honest, there's a lot of bad and some good out there. And, unfortunately, when you've got a company that's growing so quickly, you have a lot of people who come out of the woodworks that they can help you. So as someone that wouldn't know, how do you assess whether that individual is the right person for you to work with moving forward?
So I would say it's building long-term relationships with people and not jumping in and just working with someone right away because you see something on Instagram and it looks like they could be the right fit for you. Like they might, but spend the time to build that relationship and talk to other people who have worked with them. So if you need to hire someone to work on something right now because you're in the middle of something and it looks like someone could be right for you, talk to other people that they've worked with and really see if they're the right fit for you. But for us, it was just long-term relationships. So Courtney and I, as I mentioned, when we joined that first networking group, many, many years, 15 years ago now, we built some of the most incredible relationships with people that have now been in our life for many, many years. And we've always just had this group of people around us that we can always go to them to ask questions and vice versa. People always know that they can reach out to me or Courtney and if they text us, we're going to answer right away and share any advice or make any introductions and referrals. And it's just all about the network and the community that you cultivate around you and making sure that you're just building these meaningful connections and relationships.
And so, okay, so I'll take it the other direction, but how do you also guard or put boundaries around that where you don't feel like you're always giving, but yet getting nothing in return? So how do you determine that?
Yeah, it's tough, right? So for us, people were coming to us all the time, right? And I kept saying, I'm like, I want to go out and I want to meet with everyone. I want to get on calls with everyone, but there's physically not enough time in the day.
Right.
It's why we started our community. So it's like, if you want access to that, like, sure, I can help you. But guess what? There's a lot of other people who know even more than I do and have additional skill sets that I might not have. So I say, like, get into our community and then share what you're looking for. And people will tag the right people of who you should connect with. A lot of times you're like, but I just want to talk to you, Stephanie. And I'm like, you actually might want to talk to these 3 other people who have even more of the skill set of exactly what you're looking for. So it's just surrounding yourself in a group of ambitious, like-minded people who are willing to hop on a call with you and help. And I always believe that, and this was from that first group we were in, their whole theme was like giver's gain, right? It all always ends up coming back full circle. So if you're able to just offer and give just out of the, goodness of your heart, yes, you have to protect your time too. You can't spend all day, every day, taking calls. But when it makes sense, hop on a call for 10 minutes, make that connection, make that introduction, because it all always ends up coming back full circle. At least I have personally experienced that.
And I have too, to be honest. I feel like in life, karma is a great thing and you get what you put out there. So if you put a positive energy out there, you're going to get that back. So I'm absolutely in agreement with you on that. Well, let's shift gears for just a second, because not only have you had an amazing professional career, but you're also a huge advocate for yourself in your personal career and your family. You have a beautiful daughter that just started first grade. So again, you're juggling all those things like we are with back to school, but you went through a pretty traumatic experience getting pregnant. And I want people to understand that it's not just you've had this rosy, everything's unicorns and rainbows all the time, because I think sometimes when they see successful women, they think, oh, you had it easy. It never really is like that in true reality. So you had gone through a very difficult pregnancy. So talk a little bit about how you went through that and what you did for yourself and your family to make sure that you got the best results.
Yeah. And I share this all the time. Nothing is as glamorous as it might look on social media. And I always do my absolute best to just share the real and raw of what's actually going on, because I have found that by sharing, it helps so many other people see that, like, oh, I experiencing that too. And going back to like how things end up coming back full circle, I shared my journey going through my complicated infertility journey and then my even more complicated pregnancy journey. And I shared initially, I started sharing because I wanted other people to see, like, you're not alone. Like, I'm going through this. This is really hard. What ended up happening was women that I connected with through social media helped me get access or find the right doctors, the right resources as I was going through everything. And my 6-year-old Molly Hope would not be on this earth if it were not through the incredible community and women that I connected with through social media. Like, she is here because of social media, which is just wild, right? So, life is hard. Business is hard. It's all, I'm not one of those people that has had anything easy, unfortunately. I always try to think, I'm like, has anything ever been easy? I'm like, no, I have just worked really hard for everything. I feel like it's like when the hard things happen, like there's some good luck involved. It's like, cause it's like all the worst possible thing. And then I'll like somehow get that good ending eventually. But it's all been really hard, but I've just learned so much through all of the challenges that I have faced over the years. And the biggest thing is that, you are your own best advocate, and no one is going to advocate for you better than yourself. But in times of like hard trauma, and like when we went through our very complicated journey, having Molly, I was basically in a state of trauma for like 6 months, managing the whole pregnancy. And I always say, like, running a business prepared me for a complicated pregnancy and fertility journey. And then that then prepared me for like everything now in our later chapters of running a business, and everything is just like connected. But if you have not been advocating for yourself, talk to other people who've learned how to do it so you can learn, what skills and what things they had to practice to get there, because we're all going to go through really hard things in life. And the time to start to learn how to advocate is right now, because the only way to get through is to be direct and make your way through by sharing what you want. Because at the end of the day, and I share this with so many people with, I had some incredible doctors going through our complicated pregnancy journey. And a lot of it was just reframing and like mindset reframes of, instead of being like angry at doctors who would share certain things with me, I like changed my reframe. And I worked with an amazing therapist who taught me this, is that doctors are only doing the best they can do with the knowledge and information that they have, but sometimes they don't have all of the knowledge and information. And it's up to us to find that information. Although it would be nice if we didn't have to, but it's up to us to do it. It's our body. And we just need that strength to be able to then go to that doctor and share and feel like we can have a conversation with our doctors. And there's a lot of doctors out there. And the most important thing is that you need to feel comfortable that you can actually have an honest conversation with your doctor. And if you can't, and they're not open to it, then they're not the right doctor for you.
That's so interesting you say that. Being in healthcare my whole career, I tell people all the time, you can ask one question to 10 doctors and you'll get 20 different responses. And so I think the old school mentality was, oh, well, I got to stay with this doctor because, that's who I've always been with. And I tell people, physicians are just like anyone else. If they don't bring the level of personalization that you want and or you vibe with, it's not the right person. Go find someone else. And I think we get stuck in old habits and we choose to stay with them, even though we know it's not the best.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, when I was going through my fertility journey, again, I was in this, even going through my fertility journey, I was paralyzed in the beginning, where I put the first doctor I was working with, like, up on this pedestal. Like, this is the answer to me having a family. I have to do whatever they say and follow their, protocol. And I just remember even the feeling in my body, I was so scared because it's all that I wanted. And I was used to being able to like build a business and have control over things. But, when you go through an infertility journey, like, you only have control over a certain amount of things. There are a lot of things you can control when you get educated and you start learning everything, but there's a lot that you can't. But what you can control is the doctor that you choose to work with. And can you have that really great relationship and feel comfortable with them? And like, doctors work for you. You want it to be collaborative. You want to feel really good in that environment. And I'm talking all confidently like this right now after having gone through everything. But I can tell everyone, this is not how I was in the beginning going through. It was by going through the journey and learning and the trauma and learning from other people and having conversations with so many women. That is why you hear me sound so assertive and passionate about this right now. But if you are feeling like how I was initially, like just paralyzed and don't know how to ask the questions, like, you're not alone. And it's okay. And you can get through. Just surround yourself with other people who have been through it before and who will talk to you and will help guide you through.
And so for those of you that know me personally know that my kids were born through IVF as well. And so I've been down that same journey, and it's a very lonely and it's a very emotional journey in every aspect. And so I'm always the first to raise my hand for anyone that's going through IVF to let me tell you about my experience, because have conversations that are hard conversations about things that we used to not talk about. That was kind of voodoo to a certain degree. It wasn't something you'd be chit-chatting about with your girls at wine night, because nobody wanted to admit they were having challenges of such as that. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that's really important, because you're not only navigating your professional, but you're also navigating your personal, which we all forget. We can't separate the two. We talk about balance. There's really no balance. It's an integration of the two. And how can I continue to move forward in a positive direction while I'm trying to deal with both aspects and not have one impact the other? And so one more quick question I have for you, because you're just a plethora of knowledge here. Talk a little bit about how women learn to ask for help, because that's one thing is we have such a challenge of asking for help. So what are some carrots you can give my listeners in regards to what's the best way to be comfortable with asking for help?
I would say just remember, most people genuinely do want to help and they want to offer guidance and they want to share, but they can't do that if you don't ask for it. I think a lot of times as women, we feel like, oh, like I have a silly question, or I don't want to bother someone with my question. What I would share is other people have that question that you're thinking. And if you don't ask that question, you're doing other people, yourself and other people a disservice too, because people want to learn and know the answers. And most people I find are genuinely good people who do want to help and do want to share. So you're not bothering anyone. There's no silly question. There's no stupid question. Like every question is valid. Every question is important. Just ask it, because not only is it going to help you, it's going to help the person that you're asking the question to. If you share that knowledge and information, it's going to help other people. And especially like if you're building a business or you're going through a health journey, like you're going to be able to help someone else ultimately because you asked that question and got the answer there. So ask the question, even when it feels uncomfortable. Most things in life are going to feel really uncomfortable when you first start it. When we first started our podcast, I was so nervous to interview people on our podcast. Like I'd never done it before, but I just started, and it's like riding a bike. The more you do it, the more comfortable it feels. So that's another one I'll share. Like you just have to start and do it and start to get comfortable, even if it feels uncomfortable.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. You and I could go on for hours. And I feel like we're the same person almost. I hate to say that. And I know some people are going to listen and be like, wait, did you pay her to say this? Because it's like the same mindset across the board. So thank you for validating all of my personal thoughts. Thank you so much. Well, Stephanie, if people want to learn more about you, learn more about Entrepreneista Network, how can they do that?
Absolutely. So you can, first of all, you can message me or DM me anywhere personally on Instagram, on LinkedIn. You can send me an email. If you'd like to learn more about joining the Entrepreneista League, you can head over to entrepreneista.com/join, and it will take you to our membership form to be able to get into the community. And for Entrepreneista, you can follow us everywhere. We are all over social, mostly on Instagram and LinkedIn at Entrepreneistas with an S at the end on social. So thank you so much for having me here. And I hope I can continue to provide lots of value to your community and audience and listeners.
Well, I really appreciate it. I mean, my audience knows I don't normally promote or do any type of marketing in my podcast, but I am a part of your community, and it is an amazing community. And again, it's things I wish would have been around 20 years ago or 15 years ago to help me through my journey. And so I think it's really important for us to really highlight some of these amazing opportunities for women to get involved. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. And again, thank you so much for putting a community together for women to be able to join and have those advocates and help each other get to the top. Because I think that's the only way we're going to get there.
Wait, should we tell everyone? I know we haven't made a formal announcement yet that you're going to be speaking at Founders Weekend next year.
We hadn't announced that yet, but we definitely can because I am so impressed of what they bring to women, and everyone knows how important that is to me in every aspect. I will be speaking at Founders Weekend with Entrepreneista next year. I think it's in April.
It's April 30th to May 3rd next year at the PGA Resort in Palm Beach Gardens. And we're so excited to have you.
Yes, we're super excited because, again, this is everything I've been wishing for people to have And now they've got it. And so I'm like, I want to be a part of it. How can I help? Again, as everyone knows, I'm a huge advocate for women to make sure they're not lonely at the top, not following my path. And so, yes, I'm super excited. So thank you for the opportunity of being able to talk to your folks there next year.
So excited.
All right. Well, thank you, Stephanie, so much. Have a great day. And thanks everyone for listening today. If you found this valuable, feel free to send it to a friend, but feel free to follow us on Instagram, on Spotify, Apple, all those wonderful platforms. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much for listening today. We hope you found the information valuable. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, follow us and leave us a review. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love for you to like and subscribe. And don't forget to drop us a comment, as we'd love to hear from you. Have a great week.